Detective Elise Merrick's breath fogged the frigid air as she studied the crime scene. The victim lay spread eagle on the frozen lake, limbs arranged with unsettling precision. No footprints marred the fresh snow surrounding the body, as if he'd fallen from the sky. "Same as the others," said Officer Harding, stomping his feet against the cold. "No signs of struggle, no footprints, no obvious cause of death." Elise nodded. This made 5 victims in 3 weeks, all discovered in impossible locations around Blackwater Ridge. The press had dubbed the killer the Phantom, a name that felt uncomfortably appropriate. "Temperature puts time of death around midnight," said the medical examiner, closing her kit. "I'll know more after the autopsy, but I bet we'll find the same black residue in his airways." Elise crouched beside the victim, studying his face. Unlike the terror frozen on previous victims, this man's expression was serene, almost peaceful. "Who are you?" she whispered, pulling a wallet from his coat pocket. "Martin Wesley, 42. As she returned the wallet, her fingers brushed something in his other pocket, a small, leather-bound journal. Flipping through the pages, her stomach tightened. Inside were meticulous notes about the previous 4 victims, locations, dates, details not released to the public. The final entry, dated yesterday, simply read, "Tonight, it's my turn." Back at the station, Elise spread the journal's contents across her desk. Wesley had been tracking the murders, but how? And why predict his own death? "Got something," said her partner, Detective Cruz, setting down a coffee beside her. Wesley was a professor at Blackwater College, taught folklore and occult studies. "The occult? You're kidding. Gets better. 3 months ago, he took a sabbatical to research local legends. Something about the Frost Walker." Elise raised an eyebrow. "Never heard of it." "Indigenous legend. Spirit that walks between worlds when the ice forms on Blackwater Lake. Supposedly takes those who've seen beyond the veil." She gestured to Wesley's journal. "He believed this spirit was killing people? Or he was using the legend as cover for his own murders, then staged his suicide to look like another victim?" The theory felt wrong. Wesley had documented details only the killer would know, but nothing suggested he'd committed the murders. She rubbed her temples, feeling the start of a migraine, the same kind that had plagued her since childhood, always accompanied by visions she couldn't explain. "I need air," she muttered, grabbing her coat. Outside, snow was falling again. Elise walked toward the small park across from the station, replaying the case details. Each victim had connections to the supernatural: a tarot reader, a ghost tour guide, an amateur paranormal investigator, and a medium, all found in impossible locations with that strange black residue in their lungs. As she crossed the street, a sharp pain lanced through her head. Her vision blurred, replaced by flashes of ice, darkness, and a figure moving through mist. She stumbled, nearly collapsing as the vision cleared. These episodes had followed her since she was 8, when she'd fallen through the ice on Blackwater Lake and been clinically dead for 6 minutes. The doctors called her recovery miraculous. Her parents called it divine intervention. Elise had never told anyone about what she'd seen in those 6 minutes. A world of shadows and frost, where figures moved between realities. Her phone rang, jolting her back to the present. "Merrick," she answered. "It's Cruz. Wesley's autopsy results are in. You need to see this." The medical examiner looked troubled as she led them to Wesley's body. "Cause of death is hypothermia, like the others," she said. But his core temperature was impossible, nearly 40 degrees below what's survivable. It's like he flash froze from the inside out. "And the black residue?" asked Elise. The examiner pulled up microscope images on her tablet. "Not residue. They're microscopic ice crystals with an unidentifiable black substance at their core. They were growing in his lungs, spreading outward through the bronchial passages." "Growing?" Cruz asked. "Like an infection?" "More like an invasion. Whatever this is, it's not natural." Elise stared at the images, a chill running through her that had nothing to do with the morgue's temperature. The crystalline structures looked familiar, like the patterns she'd seen in her visions. "I need to see where Wesley was living," she said. Wesley's cabin sat at the edge of Blackwater Lake, isolated and silent under fresh snow. Inside, every wall was covered with research, newspaper clippings, photographs, maps. At the center was a massive corkboard with red strings connecting victims to locations around the lake. "He was hunting it," Elise murmured, examining the board. Hunting what? Asked Cruz. The Frost Walker. She pointed to a detailed drawing of a tall, gaunt figure with hollow eyes. According to his notes, it emerges when the veil between worlds thins. It takes those who've glimpsed the other side. Cruz frowned. You don't actually believe. Look at this. She showed him a map marked with 5 locations, 4 where bodies were found and a 5th circled in red. He predicted the locations, so he was working with the killer. Or he knew the pattern. She traced the points on the map, which formed a precise pentagram around the lake. One more point remains. Cruz's phone rang. After a brief conversation, his expression darkened. They found another body. Woman named Claire Mitchell, psychic consultant. Let me guess. Black residue in the lungs, no footprints, impossible location? Worse. She was found in her locked apartment, frozen solid, with ice crystals growing from her mouth. Elise's migraine returned full force, bringing flashes of ice and darkness. As they faded, she knew with terrible certainty what was happening. We need to go to the center of the lake, she said. Tonight. Darkness had fallen by the time they reached the frozen expanse of Blackwater Lake. Elise insisted on going alone, but Cruz refused to let her. This is insane, he said as they walked toward the center, flashlights cutting through drifting snow. What exactly are we looking for? Before she could answer, pain split her skull. Through watering eyes, she saw a thin crack forming in the ice ahead, spreading outward like a spider's web. From the fissure rose a mist that coalesced into a tall, emaciated figure. You see it, right? She whispered. Cruz's face had gone pale. What the hell is that? The figure glided toward them across the ice. As it approached, Elise saw it wasn't entirely solid. Moonlight passed through its form, except for eyes that burned with cold fire. The Frost Walker, she breathed. Cruz drew his weapon. Stay back! The figure didn't slow. When Cruz fired, the bullets passed harmlessly through its form. That won't work, Elise said. It's not from our world. The temperature plummeted. Their breath crystallized instantly, falling as tiny ice shards. The figure stopped, regarding them with those burning eyes. When it spoke, its voice was like ice cracking. You have glimpsed beyond. You belong to the frost. Cruz collapsed, gasping, black crystals forming around his mouth. Elise knelt beside him, panic rising. No! Take me instead! The figure tilted its head, studying her. You have walked both paths before. You carry the frost within. With horrifying clarity, Elise understood. When she'd fallen through the ice as a child, something had followed her back. A sliver of the other side, growing within her all these years, triggering her visions. The Frost Walker hadn't been hunting random people with supernatural connections. It had been hunting those connected to her. They died because of me, she whispered. They glimpsed what follows you. The veil thins where you walk. Cruz was turning blue, ice forming on his skin. Desperate. Elise did the only thing she could think of. She drove her knife into the ice, creating a fissure that spread toward the figure. You want me? Come and take me. The ice cracked beneath them. As they began to sink into the freezing water, Elise locked eyes with the entity and saw recognition there. This was how it had happened before, decades ago. I survived you once, she gasped as the cold water engulfed her. I'll do it again. The Frost Walker dissolved into mist that surrounded her. As consciousness faded, Elise felt the presence entering her, ice crystals forming in her lungs. But instead of fighting, she embraced it, accepting what she'd been denying since childhood. She was the bridge between worlds. They found her the next morning, unconscious but alive on the shore with no sign of Cruz. Medical tests revealed her core temperature was impossibly low, yet she lived. The black crystals had vanished from her lungs, leaving doctors baffled. When she returned to duty weeks later, something had changed. The migraines were gone, but cold radiated from her even on warm days. Cases involving mysterious deaths and impossible crimes now seemed to find their way to her desk. At night, she would stand at the edge of Blackwater Lake, watching mist rise from the water. Sometimes she thought she saw Cruz's reflection in the icy surface. along with the others who had glimpsed what followed in her wake. The Frostwalker hadn't claimed her, she had become it. And somewhere on the other side of the veil, winter was just beginning. Cases came to her now that others couldn't solve. Impossible crimes with supernatural elements only she could perceive. In her apartment at night, frost patterns formed on walls despite the heating. Mirrors showed a slightly different reflection, more ethereal, less human, when she wasn't looking directly at them. Standing at the lake's edge one night, she discovered she could crack the ice with a mere touch, blue power emanating from her fingertips. The realization brought both wonder and horror. Sometimes she glimpsed the other side, the shadowy frost world where previous victims now existed as silhouettes, including crews, walking among ice formations under ethereal blue light. On the coldest nights, she would walk across the frozen lake, leaving no footprints, frost forming in the air around her as she moved. The distant lights of town reminded her of the world she was gradually leaving behind, as she embraced what she had become. If the frost hasn't claimed you yet, like and subscribe, stay close to the fire, and maybe you'll survive what's coming next.